Let's take a look at NIO. So is NIO going to be a dominant player in the electrical vehicle market? So currently right now, they're making some moves in China. And in case you're not familiar with NIO, think of it as the original Tesla except for China. And they've actually lost a lot of money when they're first starting off their business, close to billions of dollars. And then back in actually Q3 of 2020, they managed to do over $600 billion in sales and deliver up to 12,000 plus vehicles. And originally, at some point, they were actually close to bankruptcy, and then they end up getting over $1 billion plus in funding, which pretty much saved their company. And now you can see at the current day to day, their current price around the stock is hovering around the 56 or so dollar mark. So you can see from inception, pretty much they're covering around below 8ish, 7, 6 or dollars, give or take. And then all of a sudden at the all-time lows, pretty much sub $2, close to $1 plus. And then all of a sudden they've just been going to the moon at this point and doing quite well so far. Now, just note, nothing I say is financial advice. These are just all my opinions. So make sure to do your own research before making any investments. But take a look at NIO right now. This is their ETF7. So think of this as like their sedan that they're trying to compete with the works of Tesla. And as of today, at least to my knowledge, they have over 162 battery locations built so far. That number might increase or decrease depending on what happens. But the main difference with NIO compared to Tesla that I've found is their way that they're running the model in terms of charging the battery. So if you're from the States, Tesla, originally they tried the idea of swapping out the battery, but so far they didn't find it as feasible back when they attempted it. But in China, where its main market is right now, most people, from my understanding, even comments I've seen from people from Asia, stated that they live more in apartments and condos. So the whole thing around charging stations like in America or even Europe aren't as feasible because there's just not enough space, and it'll just be chaotic because, obviously you're not living in like a typical standard home. So their main thing is a battery as a service. So essentially, I can bring up their actual page. There's multiple options, but in short, what this actually means is you pretty much pull up with your car and then they swap your battery out literally, and then you're on set to go, and it takes less than 3 minutes. Now, right now, this actually is their main differentiating factor compared to the typical Teslas and electric vehicles, at least in the States, because it's time, right? It's much quicker. Now, unless they're able to find a way to charge cars much quicker to the point where it's faster than swapping out, then obviously they'd have to change their business model from there. But also, this does save people money as well, by you can actually get a NIO without the battery, and based off of the conversion rates, depending on where you're from, the total savings can be anywhere upwards of $10,000 on the actual upfront purchase. And then you can just sit there and use like a monthly subscription to where you can just go in and out. And in that way, it'll save you more money versus having to pay it up front with the battery included. So you can see here, subscribe over buying for only RMB 980 per month. So I don't know the conversion off the USD, but obviously you'd have to do those numbers. And again, it's chargeable, swappable, and upgradable. So I think that's a really interesting move that they're doing, especially for China. Now, when it comes to tapping into other markets, maybe Europe, again, that might be something not as feasible. So they might have to convert it to the typical, charging stations like Tesla does. But I'm sure they'll be able to adapt to that. And then you can see here more details. Now, another thing that I thought was really interesting with NIO, and why I think it's definitely something to keep your eyes on, is they actually have NIO houses, right? So think of this, if you're from the States, there's a big thing called co-working spaces and like WeWork, etc. And at least in the States, people like to have that feeling of exclusivity. And again, I'm just speaking based off of like opinions. But again, America, I don't know how culturally different it is compared to China or even Europe's view, because I'm not obviously in those areas. But what this is saying is pretty much anyone who owns a NIO car, they can pretty much just pull up to these places where it's built to design to just do whatever you want here. So think of it kind of like, if you're from America, like a co-working space, which I think is really cool. And I've never really seen a business model like this, especially in America, that's pulling this off, because this gives you some sort of exclusivity feeling like you want to be a part of these little spaces, whether it's like a nice place to do your business, your work, or bring your kids, etc. So this could be a big selling factor in terms of whether or not people will decide over the NIO electric vehicle or another competitor. But at the end of the day, if all of these companies end up creating a very similar electric vehicle, it's like, what is really going to cause them to pick over the other, right? Besides the looks, I mean, if you can either match the the mile range that most of these go, which it seems like most of these electric companies do quite similar in terms of like how far you can go off a single charge, then you're gonna have to have some sort of thing that will give them more incentive. So again, in terms of the other companies, I'm sure they could easily add on to this, but I thought this was really cool to show you in terms of like what NIO actually has to offer today. So looking at NIO 2, some interesting news that I saw, this was actually recent, was LinkedIn. There was actually this is just speculation. There's no, I don't know, confirmation yet, but obviously I'm assuming they're looking into other markets. And here we actually have this article stating that there was a job posting regarding NIO, and essentially it suggests that they might be entering the US market. So I don't know again if this is going to be very soon, or again there's obviously some regulations and government issues with US versus China, so again you have to consider that into effect. But you can see here basically the company has created an open position for a mid to senior level executive who is expected to lead the team to expand his business in the US market. So that's something definitely I'd say keep your eyes on. And cool fun facts, I think that would make it more interesting, because again, electric vehicles sound great, but how are their sales? So from articles that I've seen, they've actually had an increase of over 350% in year-over-year sales since January of 2021 compared to the last January of 2020. And they sold over 7,000 plus vehicles, which if you were to extrapolate that over to a 12-month period, that's about over 86K. And that's essentially in short closer to 100,000 vehicles in a year, which I think that's a good view to see, especially for companies who are just brand new to this space and just trying to get into the new emerging markets. But definitely let me know in the comments below if you are invested in NIO and whether or not that you think it's going to be bullish for the next few years, or if you have eyes on another company that's similar to electric vehicles that you think might do better than NIO. And also, if you're new to the channel, you want to see more updates and videos like this, then definitely hit that like button, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you in the next one.